Are you making your kids grow up too fast? Are we making our kids grow up too fast?
One day I want to find someone who sees the world like me.
What's going on, people? Ben and Brittany here from benandbrittany.net. Today's topic is, what is it?
Are we making our kids grow up too fast?
Are we making our kids grow up too fast? I asked Brittany this question, or no, you actually asked it to me, because we were having this discussion the other day about, like, we were making them clean up after themselves and, like, teaching them how to make sandwiches, and, you know, Kinsley's learning how to make coffee with me every single morning, and we just stopped and we were like, are we making them grow up too fast? Like, are we asking them to do too much? Like, there's certain things in our household that they just don't get away with anymore, like making messes. We put our foot down on making messes, and we just had this back burner thought, like, are we robbing them of their childhood? And I just feel like that's a debatable thing, so we wanted to talk about it and look up some information, see what people think, and just discuss it from multiple different perspectives and see where we stand when we're done doing this. So
yeah.
What information have you dug up on, like, kids growing up too fast?
So, interestingly, opposite of what I had thought, it appears that, especially in the teenage years, children are actually maturing more slowly than in past generations. So a lot of people are probably, and at least I had the thought of, like, with all this technology and, like, kids getting on social media, I thought they were growing up too fast. Like, I'm seeing outfits these kids are wearing, and I'm like, these, like,
I see what you're saying.
Early teenage, like, not even teenage, but, like, preteen girls are wearing outfits that
25-year-olds should wear.
Right. Like,
yeah.
It used to be, like, I mean, do you remember, like, our kids' clothes? Like, in our pictures, like, our moms had us in these ridiculous outfits with, like, giant, like, cartoons on them, or, like, like trucks and, like, the big white collars and frill.
And I was in, like, 8th grade.
Okay, well.
No.
No, but, like, now kids are truly, like, I can wear matching outfits with my daughters.
Yeah.
Without trying hard.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to try hard to find outfits that all of us match.
So you're saying girls, especially girls.
Especially girls. I thought were growing up too quick based on what I was seeing.
Just by their general look, their outfits.
And, like, how they pose for photos on social media.
Okay.
Right? But this article is actually saying that their teenagers especially are maturing. So maybe they may look like they're growing up faster, but they are actually maturing slower, to the point where professors at NYU have even noticed that when kids get to college, they're not ready.
They're not ready for college.
They are ready mentally in the sense of they're smart, they're book smart, they pass their tests to get into that college.
But they don't know how to make a sandwich.
They can't provide for themselves. They can't problem solve. They can't think for themselves. They don't know what to do with themselves. So it's essentially, a lot of times, it's the first time in their life ever that they've had to manage their own time, that they've had to keep themselves accountable, that they maybe even had to get a job.
Yeah. It's the first time that they didn't have somebody to coddle them.
Right.
And I firmly believe that I'm a victim of that. No, it sounds way worse than I think than it is. My parents were amazing. I love both my parents.
That was a jab at you.
What?
I'm not gonna say anything.
Okay, well, Brittany still takes care of me and stuff.
I love you.
Okay, so my parents were amazing. I feel like if there was one thing that I could change about my childhood, it's that I wish that my parents would have taught me more, like, how to do things for myself. Like, maybe put me in a little bit more, a few more situations where I had to problem solve or had to fend for myself or had to make my own money. I did have jobs growing up, but a lot of times my parents were the ones that were like, oh, we'll take care of it. Like, especially when it came to, like, using a bank system, paying loans, learning how to manage money. I don't really know if I ever got taught things like that. So, with that said, that is something that I would change about my own childhood. Therefore, it translates to me wanting to change this for Kaylin and Kinsley, our two kids, 6 and 3. I feel like I am constantly, if they ask me if they can have a drink, I will be like, go to the fridge and get a drink. You can't pull the straw off and stick it in your Capri Sun? Try. I want you to try for 1 whole minute before I help you. Like, I am that parent. And I just was thinking, I was like, wow, like, are we asking too much of them? Because Kinsley's 3 years old. And I'm over there like, this is how you flip an egg. and this is, like, try harder. Did you look for your backpack that you claim you can't find? Like, look for another 2 minutes and look hard before I find you or before I come help you.
Yeah, and I think it shows because, like, for example, Kaylin is 6, Kinsley is 3. Kaylin couldn't do her own hair, like put it in a ponytail by herself until this year, 6 years old. Mm-hmm. Kinsley is 3.
And she can do it.
And she can put her own hair in a ponytail. And I know that might sound minuscule, but it was because pre-Ben, a lot of times, like, I didn't have anything else but the girls. So, like, the girls would be like, Mom, I need a drink. Mom, I'm hungry. Mom, can you put my hair up? I just did it.
You just said, yeah, I got you.
I was like, sure, yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
what I think my mom was to me when I was a kid. Like, I could be sitting next to my mom on the couch watching the same TV show as her, and I would just go, Mom, I'm thirsty. And she would get up and get me a drink.
Right.
That won't fly for me.
Yeah.
Like, that does not fly. Because, like, there's certain things about that, you know, I wish that I would have changed growing up. Like, I got into the hole with, like, money management when I was in college because I was so terrible at it because I was never taught or forced to do it. Therefore, I will force or teach my kids how to do those things because I don't want them to be in the same situations that I was.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And I think it's helped the girls, and it's also helped us because being self-employed parents, there's a lot of times where what we are doing we have to focus on. So, for example, when Ben is editing videos, it's really difficult for him to stop editing the video and go get the girls a drink and then come back and then continue editing.
Yeah,
he loses that creative flow
that gets interrupted, and there's stats that show, like, when you're in a workflow and you get pulled out of it for whatever reason, it takes you up to 15 minutes to get back into that. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of studies on that.
And if it's happening to you every 10 minutes, like, you're kind of screwed.
Then it's hours in a day that you're just spending trying to get back in a flow. Mm-hmm. Tons of waste of time. For me, I'm working on a lot of deadlines. So, like, if I have a client who says they want to write an offer, and then I find out that it's due at 7, it's now 5:30. I have to hustle to get the offer completely typed up, sent over to my client, review it with my client page by page, have them send it back to me re-review it, make sure we didn't miss anything, and then me submit it to the listing agent. Yeah. So there are just times where, like, we have to be focused, even though we're home. We're not in the workplace, but we are at home, and the kids are here. And we kind of have forced the kids to kind of learn some independence, I think, because of that, where it's just like, listen, if you want it right now, you got to be able to get it yourself. Otherwise, you got to wait 15 minutes until I'm done.
Yeah. And do you think we're helping them or hurting them?
I think we're helping them.
I think we are too.
At first, I felt super guilty, but after reading this article, and just so you know that this article is actually from a journal called Child Development. This was based off of nationally representative surveys done between 1976 and 2016. So they have been researching this for years on over 8 million kids from ages 13 to 19. So there's been a lot of time and effort put into this study. And what they're seeing is that parents have become more of the helicopter type parent, not trying to say that that's bad.
What's that mean?
It means that we're doing a lot more for our kids and not making them do a lot of things for themselves.
Is that the helicopter?
Helicopter to...
Like you're hovering over them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
I didn't explain that well. But, yeah. The good news is that kids are often putting off things like drinking and sex until a lot later than maybe during our generation. So that's a win, right? The other positive, I think, is, our kids are going to college prepared in the sense that they are smart, right? So our kids are studying. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing to keep their grades up so they can get into these colleges. But the problem is that because we're doing everything for them, so maybe they can focus on their studies.
They do what they're told.
They're used to just doing what they're told.
But they only do what they're told.
Right. So then they forget, well, how do I do time management? You know, when I was in school...
Well, that's not their fault because it's like they were never taught that. So they don't even know like that's a need.
Right.
That's
like,
where I
idea.
was when I started to realize I was like, shit, like I don't know how to do any of this. Like I didn't know I needed to.
Right.
And if I did know I needed to, I might have been like, hey, so checking account, savings account, how much should I be putting away in order to be alive in 10 years and not live in a box? Like those kind of things. Like I think it's more so awareness. If you don't at least let your kid know that there are some things that they should be learning, they're not going to even think to learn them. Like,
yeah.
You know?
I also think some of it, parents need to teach their kids these things, but I also think that schools have become so focused on academics and college readiness as far as like what they know, the facts that they know, that they've kind of forgotten to make sure that all kids know like how to take care of their finances and like time management. Like I remember taking those classes in high school because I wanted to go to school for business, so I took a lot of those classes as electives, but they were not required.
I didn't even have
Why
electives.
isn't a personal financial management class a required elective for high school students? Like it should.
It should be.
But also parents need to do a better job at, and I shouldn't say it like that, we as parents should teach our children how to manage finances.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I will not fail at.
Right.
Like there every chance that I see to teach or explain or make the kids aware that this is a thing, I take it. And that's the whole reason why we're doing this podcast. Like when is too much? When is it too early? Because
I think it's never too early if they can do it. So like if you say, well, go get yourself a drink, and they can open the fridge
and get themselves a drink,
get out the Capri Sun, and then stick the straw in the Capri Sun by themselves, and they can show you that they can do it themselves, then it wasn't too early.
Yeah, and
if they literally can't do it, then okay, we need to maybe wait on this a couple months or however long, depending on what their age is. Like I feel like if they can do it themselves, it's not too early.
Yeah, and there was one time that I realized that Kinsley was like way smarter than she plays dumb. She's 3 years old now, but like she will play dumb sometimes, and I caught on to her doing it. Like she knew how to dress herself when she was 2.
Yeah.
Like fully dress herself.
She could put on her shirt and pants and underwear, socks, all that.
But if you let her, if it's time for her to get dressed and like you'll be like, okay, go change your underwear, get dressed, she will lay on the floor and put her legs in the air and just wait. Because she knows that you're going to come put her underwear on, or she's trying to get you to.
Yeah.
But if she started doing that, and then there was a couple times I would just do it because I assumed that she didn't know how.
And I did it for the sake of time.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, yo, we got to get out the door in 15 minutes, put on your pants. And then I would just do it. So like in saying this, I don't think parents were always like we're not always trying to be helicopter parents. I think that everything is like time is of the essence, and we just know that we can do it 10 times faster, so we just do it.
You just do it. You do it for the time's sake.
Right.
We live in the age of information where everything's moving at light speed, and if you're not taking 2 steps forward, you're taking 3 steps back. So like time has become more valuable than anything else, and I think it's real easy to get caught up in that and like do everything for your kids because it's quicker when you do it because you're 29 years old and you're smarter than a 6-year-old.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a nurturing parent.
Yeah.
But I think it's allowing yourself to be nurturing at the right times and then also realizing learning opportunities. And that was something that I struggled with. And then I'm definitely happy that Ben has enforced, because it's not only been good for us, so we're not always only the ones picking up the messes or having to stop every 15 minutes when we have to work from home, like if it's a snow day or one of the kids are sick type thing, but we still have things we have to work on. We're able to get work done because we've put some independence on the kids, but it's also clearly good for them because I think our girls are going to be.
They're going to be self-sufficient.
Right. These are definitely important skills to have. I think I would rather my kids be independent and know things like finance, like not financing, but like personal financial management, time management, knowing how to problem solve. I think I would rather them know those things than, a bunch of facts.
Yeah, and I'm 29 years old, and I don't know how to manage money properly or pay my taxes. Like, if it wasn't for Brittany, I'd be dead. Like, and that's,
Ben
I don't know
would still
anything.
have, he, owed the state of Pennsylvania some money.
Yeah, and I was like, well, they can come get it, suckers. Like, what's the worst that they could do to me? And Brittany's like, they can throw you in jail. And I'm like, oh.
I was like, there's a lot of things they can do, like garnish your tax returns. There's just...
Yeah, and I was like, the last thing that got garnished for me was my cocktail. Like, what is this garnishing thing? Like, there's a world of terminology and information that, like, I know about now, but only thanks to Brittany, who knows that stuff. And, like, I started to realize, I was like, man, like, why wasn't I ever informed about this stuff? And part of that's my fault, because I never sought to ask or find out, but like I never realized or understood the necessity of it. I just thought that things would fall into place like they have my life, my entire life, because that's just, my parents did a lot of that stuff and they didn't bring me in, and I should have been brought in.
Yeah, and it's funny because like growing up, I would get irritated sometimes with my parents because like they wouldn't help me do stuff, and I'd be like, ugh, like filling out all the student loan, what was that, like assistance forms, like everybody filled it out to see if they could get.
See, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I think it was like FAFSA forms or whatever.
Oh, like, I know what that is, but I don't know what it looks like.
I had to completely fill them out almost 100% by myself. And it was a lot of paperwork. And then if I ran into an issue, like I didn't understand what a question was asking me, or like it had to be like my mom's signature, then I would bring it to my mom. She would review it, sign what she had to sign, give me the information that I needed help with. But like my parents always made me do it first. And then if I like truly couldn't figure it out, that's when they would kind of come in. Like even applying for loans, like a car loan or anything like that, I had to do. I had my own bank account at 16. I had to keep my own checkbook. Like my mom, those are things that she like made me learn.
See, I wish I had that.
And back then, sometimes I was irritated. Having my own bank account, I thought that was cool. Like I remember being like, okay, this is like adulting, But look, like now that I'm in this seat, I'm realizing like this is why my parents made me do all these things, because it just prepared me for life, really. Yeah.
And like, wow, if I had to fill out that FAFSA form, I would have been like, I don't know what the first sentence means. Should you just do this? And they'd be like, yeah, whatever, go to practice. And I would go to football practice.
And that's Ben still today. Ben gets a letter in the mail
and I'm just like, Brittany.
He's like, I don't know what this means.
Like she was doing our taxes the other day, and I was like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm doing tax stuff. I was like, I'm out.
Yeah, I like, so we do have an accountant, but you still have to get everything ready for your accountant. And like I was just getting together a bunch of stuff, crunching some numbers, figuring out a lot of stuff that we could write off. And I had like spreadsheets up. I had a tablet that I was like writing things down and calculating. And Ben was just like, I am just so grateful for you.
Yeah, I was just like, I don't know how life works, baby. I'm so glad you're in mine to make sure that it's going straight.
But one thing I do is I do make Ben sit with me like when we do the budget. So like Ben may not understand how all of my spreadsheets are put together, but he does.
I get it.
I very much made him aware of how money goes in and out.
Yeah, she's our CFO, and I'm like, I know what's going on, but like she definitely steers that ship. Like I could figure it out now. I'm at a point in my life where I'm not as naive as I make myself seem in this podcast, but I was at one point just that naive, and I still would be if it wasn't for Brittany. So that just all leads back to this thing, this parenting thing that I think is
funny.
It's so controversial.
And this article also mentions that Now, because social media has only developed in recent years, and this study had gone back to 1976, there's not enough research to really conclude how social media is affecting our children. But it's a theory that social media is actually kind of hindering some of their development because it's not making them be social face to face. So they're doing a lot of this interaction online with their friends, and then that means they're hanging out less in person, which means that they're not having to face problem-solving things in person. So, for example, especially girls, I don't think this happens a lot with guys, but like teenage girls, we stir up drama, get into little cat fights, as my mom would call them, you know. Well, my best friend Susie is dating my recently ex-boyfriend Tom, and I'm super upset about it, right? And then you're like talking to your friend Jane about it. I don't know. And you used to have to deal with those things a lot of times in person.
Yeah. You didn't have like 10 minutes to think about how to respond.
Right. Now it's like, now it's just like happening on social media and through Facebook Messenger and text messages. Like texting kind of started to become popular in high school for us.
Yeah.
But it wasn't huge because I remember like texting like shorter things because smartphones weren't really a thing until college.
Yeah.
So like you would have to like sit there and do like the thing like 3 times to get one letter. So I remember text messages being a little shorter, and then longer conversations almost had to be on the phone or your thumbs would fall off.
Yeah, or it would just take too long.
It would take too long.
Yeah.
So we still had to like interact. Nowadays, like with smartphones and predictive texting, it's so much easier.
Yeah. But like imagine how a conversation would go, like an actual face-to-face conversation with like the way that texting works. Like if I look at my phone and like for instance Brittany's texting me, it'll be like Brittany is typing, backspace, 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 backspace. Brittany is typing, backspace, backspace, backspace. Brittany is typing. Like the third thought is the one that she decided she was gonna say.
Right.
You know, like imagine if you were just like, oh, I got an F on a test. What do I do now? And I'm like, well, I think you should go punch your teacher. Backspace. I think that you should study a little hard. Backspace. I'm super sorry that happened to you.
Right. It does. It allows us to have more time, and then you're not having to confront things like that.
you don't get a take back when you're face to face. Like your first response is your first response, and you can't sit there. Like you can't be like, I got an F on my test.
Sucks to be you.
Like you can't. But yeah, like you can't sit there for like 30 seconds in silence and think about what you want to say. Like that's not how conversations work.
That sucks.
You're gonna be the weird one.
Yeah, it's just it's just funny. I'm kind of baffled because I really thought it was going to be like, yeah, we were growing up too fast because we have access to the internet and the internet can expose our children to all these things. They're dressing like they're adults when they're 9. Mm-hmm.
I see it on TikTok.
High school,
TikTok is a weird app.
Oh.
I downloaded it because I thought I needed it, like to be socially relevant with all this Ben and Brittany stuff we're doing.
Yeah, we were going to do Ben and Brittany videos. We did one.
First thing I saw on TikTok when I downloaded it gives you videos without asking for them. Like it just shows you whatever video. And the first video that was on TikTok was like some 16-year-old girl dressed like a 30-year-old dancing. And I was like, what the? Like I felt yucky.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Why? Like I didn't understand it.
I think maybe social media is allowing kids to act like they're adults and portray themselves like they're older than what they are.
Which I guess is the new cool thing to do.
But when it actually comes time to them actually adulting, they can't handle it.
Mm-hmm. Perception is reality in today's world, but not really.
Nope. Yeah. I see too many girls, like, it's so funny because my dad was never, I mean, he was protective. He definitely was protective. However, you know, he still gave me space, like, because he wanted me to be able to make my own decisions and then learn from the decisions that I made. With that said, he would never have let me leave the house when I was living under his roof wearing high-waisted jeans and then a crop top showing this much of my stomach. He would have
flew back then.
He would have like murdered me. Like, no, go back in the house and change. Or like the teen, like I don't know how many times we were out this summer And like Ben and I would be in line somewhere for like ice cream or something, and like these teenage girls were wearing shorts so short that literally the bottoms of their butt cheeks were hanging out. And I was like, my dad would never, my mom would never have, I would never have let me expose myself like that. And so I think that's why, like, when we first started talking about this topic, I was like, yeah, kids are growing up way too fast. No, they think they're growing up too fast. They're dressing like they're growing up too fast. But at the end of the day, we're not teaching them anything. We're just giving them what they want, helping them all the time so they can, like, you know, be kids. But then once they're thrown out into the real world and the real world doesn't care that they weren't taught time management skills, it's too late.
I also think that I want to play devil's advocate here, because I also believe that there's a different side to that story. Like, they're dressing like they're way too old and they're trying to grow up they look like they're growing up too fast, but they really don't know how to do anything. I think that the things that we think a person at that age should know how to do are changing. For instance, kids that don't know how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich can build a website in 5 minutes. What's more relevant going forward as the years go by? Like,
I can absolutely devil's advocate that, because employers need people to build websites, and they need people that know how to do the things, right?
How to function in a technologically growing
However,
world.
That still requires time management. It still requires problem solving. It still requires them interacting with other humans. It still requires them to adult. I know for a fact when I worked in the corporate world and we would have interns come in, or like these young kids fresh out of college, like to start their new big girl, big boy job, and you had to literally hold their hand.
That's the difference of being book smart. That's book smart versus street smart.
Right. Like they could absolutely, you know, do all these things. Like they were smart, but when it came time to time management, especially, like we almost had to like teach them, like, okay, from 9 to 10, do this. From 10 to 11, do this, because they couldn't figure out how to get, like if you would say, get these 10 tasks done, they would just be overwhelmed with, that's a lot to do. How am I going to get all this done?
Did you ever see the dumbest person you know get an A on a test?
Yeah.
The way that I said that is ridiculous, but I do know, like, growing up, like, I know some of the people that got the best grades were like, you look at them and you know who they are and their personalities, and you're just like, I don't know how that person would function in like social situations, like in a job. Like, they're gonna have a 4.0 in this field that once they get out there, like, they're not gonna know. They just know that. Yeah. They don't know how to work on a team. They don't know how to communicate with people. Like, their communication skills were bad. Like, antisocial kids. And I don't know. It's good to have a healthy balance.
And that's, I think, what it's all about is balance.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's okay to nurture your children. I think it's okay that they're independent. And I think it's okay that maybe they focus on studies and they like to know facts and they like to be smart. I think that's great. But I just think that we can't let social media or technology hinder us from being real people with real skills. And also, sometimes I think it prevents us, like, it almost makes us socially awkward to the point where we're not even nice. Like, so I think some kids don't know how to be nice. I know
what you mean. I've seen, like, kids just ignore other kids.
Yeah.
And act like they're not even there. Like, because they're just like, oh, a conversation? No thanks. They just pretend it's not even happening.
We're just going to see right through you. And then, you know, cyberbullying.
That's a whole nother
thing, but I'm just saying. Yeah. I would much rather Kaylin and Kinsley be, you know, smart. Maybe I'd rather them be like a BC student than a straight A student and not know how to, like, do any time management, not be independent, and, like, maybe not even be a nice person. I'd rather them just be like,
a good person who gets B's.
I really would. Like, if that meant that they were also good with time management, financial management,
all that
those
stuff.
types of things. Like,
Yeah.
I would rather them be prepared for life than them to only be prepared for college. And by being prepared for college, by the school standards, like high school standards of being prepared for college, is having, a certain grade point average, a certain SAT score. I'm talking about, I want them to be prepared for college in the sense that, like, they're living on their own. They have to make their own decisions and not die. Like, they can make their own peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and they're not going to starve or only eat like potato chips and hot dogs.
Because that's just easy.
Because that's the easy thing to do, because they don't know how to cook a meal.
Or they just choose not to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let us know what you guys think on this topic, because like I said earlier in the podcast, like I'm I'm a step parent, and I will take any opportunity I can to teach the girls how to do something, no matter how young or old they are, and I do make them clean up. And if they do something incorrect, like I walk through it with them and make sure they know why it's incorrect. I'm not just like, that's wrong. There's just so many situations where I've been trying to mold their little brains, and I've had that conversation with myself, like, am I robbing them of their childhood? And as we talk through it, I don't think so.
No, I don't.
I think we're just setting them up, like, to be a certain kind of thinker, like a problem solving, like, think on your feet kind of person, which I think is invaluable. I think that's so much more valuable than being able to write a 3-page book report on the Great Expectations and get an A when you're 7. Like, I don't think that matters.
Right.
I think that, problem solving, thinking on your feet, and wit is a much more valuable universal style of thinking than the book says this.
Right. I would just have to say that having them from babies onward, like, pediatricians are always like, okay, well, make sure you're reading to them every night, which we do. We love to read. The girls love to read. I'm not saying anything bad about that.
Caitlin reads to
But
us.
there was just a ton of focus on making sure they know their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s before kindergarten, and like making sure that they know their colors and all this stuff. Super important. But the focus was always on what they knew. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a lot of emphasis on making sure you can teach them how to communicate. Like, I feel like the same amount of time we are teaching our children facts, ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, biology in high school, whatever that stuff is, we also need to be spending the same amount of time developing life skills.
Yeah.
That's just my thought.
Well-rounded.
Yeah.
Well-rounded human is the best human. But that's just our opinion.
Yeah, clearly
there's so many other sides. We're not experts.
We don't have teenage children.
We don't have teenage children yet. We have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. Right. So all of our perspectives are coming from that. And let us know if you guys agree or disagree. We're interested to see anybody that has a different feeling. Like, we will never judge anybody for feeling different than us. We're actually intrigued and fascinated by the other side.
And here's the other thing. We will never judge another parent for parenting different. So if you're the parent that does do everything for your child so that way they can study because you know that they want to be a rocket scientist and that they do have to get certain grades to get into the right college to be able to do that.
That's perfectly fine.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I don't ever want there to be we are a judgment-free zone like Planet Fitness.
No, not like Planet Fitness. Planet Fitness claims to be a judgment-free zone, and then they create their own lingo to
judge
to talk
heavy
shit
lifters.
on strong people. Like, get out of my face, Planet Fitness.
I'm sorry.
That's my opinion on Planet Fitness.
I was being facetious when I said it like that, but I wanted to be. This is just an article that we read, and this is our thoughts on it. But we will always be respectful, and we just hope that other people are respectful towards our parenting styles too. Yeah. That's all we ask. It's all about positivity.
But we're not afraid to share
our opinion,
our actual real opinions, because I think that there's a lot of people that will agree, and there's a lot of people that'll disagree, and we just like talking about it because it's a real thing. There is no right or wrong way.
Why I wanted to do this one is because there was so little on it.
Yeah, we tried to look up a bunch of stuff.
Like,
there's really no...
Most of the time when we do podcasts, I can find articles for days related to what we're talking about. There was like nothing other than this one journal, like this one study, but everything else was from like 2000 and 2013.
I think that goes to show that
times have changed so much since then.
Yeah, I think that goes to show that nobody really knows what they're doing.
Right.
They just have a best guess.
But if more people talk about it and more people share their experiences, we can all grow from it.
I think so. And we can all see the other side of the coin. Like, that's my favorite thing in the world. If you guys disagree, please let me know, and let me know why. Like, I'm interested in stuff like that. I want to have an educated conversation rather than an argument on said topics that we discuss here on this podcast.
And I would also just love really cool ways on how you teach your kids about money.
Yeah,
because that's I think a tough one. I've had a couple people give me some really cool ideas, and starting at a young age. I think age 6 and 3 is a good time to start slowly introducing some of these skills because their brains are like sponges.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to get them when they're young. Yeah,
you came in at just the right time.
Oh, I did. Love you.
Love you.
Thank you guys for listening to this podcast. I think we're going to wrap it up. We hope this helped you. Or at least inspired you to think about the way that we're raising kids, and I'm not really sure. We just wanted to have this conversation and get it rolling. And if there's anything that we can do to help you and your family, or anybody that you know, or if you want to be part of our little community, you can text Ben and Brittany to 717-422-8318 and just become a part of our community. Start conversations. Talk about hard topics. That's what we like to do. And all kinds of different things. So just Ben and Brittany to 717-422-8318 and let us know what you guys think about this topic in the comments below. Agree, disagree, and we will see you in the next podcast.
And maybe we'll learn so much that when it's time for round 3, we'll be like amazing parents.
Word. Round 3 meaning the third kid. We have 2. But thank you guys for listening. We'll see you later.